exploring the Fallout New Vegas Iceberg. Let's go. Faction Disguises. This was a pretty interesting feature in Fallout New Vegas. Even though majority of people see it as a minimal aspect of it, it still was cool nonetheless. But essentially what this is playing dress up. You could take a certain faction's armor, like the NCR, and put it on, and now you are an illiterate NCR soldier. Or you could do the same thing with a Legion armor, put that on, and now you're a Legion femboy. And what's cool about these faction disguises is people will think that you are a part of said faction. So putting on NCR armor and walking into an NCR base, people will just think you're some NCR grunt. Except, high-ranking NPCs will be able to see through your disguise, so trying to throw on a faction disguise and walking in front of Caesar is not gonna work. But these disguises can be very helpful if you're trying to get into certain areas. Especially if you have a negative reputation with one faction, if you throw on that disguise, your reputation gets sent to neutral. So if Courier 6 has a negative reputation with the NCR, if you throw on an NCR disguise, you are now neutral, and you can get into certain areas that normally would shoot at you on sight. But there's also the other side of that. If you are dressed like an NCR soldier and you happen to walk by some Legion, they're gonna attack you also on sight. And vice versa, if you're dressed like the Legion and walk around some NCR, they're gonna try to kill you. Now, even though there wasn't like a lot of actual uses for faction disguises, and majority of the time players hardly ever use it, it was still a cool concept that I really enjoyed. Two bears high-fiving. What started out as a mod for the Inkblot test during the quest Ain't That a Kick in the Head ended up morphing into its own character. And yes, you heard that correct. In the beginning of Fallout New Vegas, when you are building out your character and you do the Inkblot test, someone thought that this image was two bears high-fiving, so they made a dedicated mod to be able to select that as an option. And this ended up becoming such a meme that they decided to actually put it in the game. During the Honest Hearts DLC, if you have the Wild Wasteland trait on, before entering this cave, you can see this character run out and cheer. And if you look at his name, it's two bears high-fiving. Snow globes. Snow globes are a collectible item in Fallout New Vegas, and can be sold to Jane and the Lucky 38 for 2,000 caps each, and then will be added to the snow globe display in the Lucky 38 Presidential Suite. And there are a total of 7 out there in the Wasteland. The first one can be found in the Good Springs Cemetery, in the grave next to the water tower. Heading over to Hoover Dam, we can find the next one, sitting right there on the welcome desk. Another one can be found in the Old Mormon Fort. By entering the fort, you want to head to the western corner and enter that door, and the snow globe will be located upstairs on a shelf. If you happen to make your way to Jacobstown, you can find the next one inside the Jacobstown Lodge, sitting right there on the reception desk. Another one can be found in the Nellis Air Force Base. By heading inside the base and going to the Boomer Museum, you can find the snow globe at the table on to the right. You can also find 2 snow globes on the strip. One can be found in the cocktail lounge of the Lucky 38, right behind the cash register. And if you head down to Vault 21, you can also find another. This one will be on Sarah's nightstand. So if you end up having a little adult sexy time with her, you can just steal it afterwards. Now the next 4 aren't in the base game and all require some DLC. There is one located in the Sierra Madre, which is in the Dead Money DLC, and will be located in the upper levels of Salida del Sol North, located near Dean's Secret Stash. If you have the Honest Hearts DLC, you will find the Zion National Park snow globe. This one's going to be located in the general store in the northwestern part of Zion. It'll be on the bottom shelf of a broken cabinet behind the counter. Now if you make your way to Old World Blues, we can grab the Big Mountain Snow Globe. This one will be found in the X-17 Meteorological Station, and will be found right next to the model houses. The last and final snow globe that you can get is going to be in the Lonesome Road DLC. This one will be found at the Junction 7 rest stop, and will be located upstairs inside of a fallen bookshelf. Now the reason we have these snow globes is 1, because it's a pretty cool thing to collect, but 2, because Josh Sawyer says that it's a Citizen Kane reference. He describes Mr. House as a little bit Citizen Kane-y, and said that they represent a perfectly little controlled world. And if you don't believe me, here's him saying it.
Who came up with the snow globes? I did, I think. I'm pretty sure it was me. I'm going to get an email from John Gonzalez saying, no, actually it was me. I think it was me, because Mr. House is very, He's very Citizen Kane-y. He has that vibe, and snow globes felt like a little perfectly controlled world. Seemed appealing to him.
Skill book. Skill book, very similar to magazines, will help raise a certain skill, but unlike magazines, these ones are permanent. After reading a skill book, you will raise a certain skill by 3 points, 4 if you have the comprehension perk. And there are a variety of skill books. You have Tales of a Junktown Jerky Vendor, which will raise your barter, Nikola Tesla and You, which raises your energy weapons, Duck and Cover for explosives, Guns and Bullets for guns, Tumblers Today for lockpick, DC Journal of Internal Medicine for, wouldn't you know it, medicine, Grognak the Barbarian for melee weapons, Dean's Electronics for repair, Big Book of Science. Now this one is actually going to be for science, wouldn't you know it. Chinese Army Special Ops Training Manual for sneak, Lying Congressional Style for speech, Wasteland Survival Guide for survival, and Pugilism or Pugilism Illustrated for unarmed. I'm illiterate, I can't read. And there are going to be multiple books of these scattered all throughout the Mojave and even in the DLCs. And in total, if you manage to collect every single book, you'll get about 282 skill points, or 376 with the comprehension perk. And I think throughout the base game and all DLCs, there's at least a minimum of 6 skill books for each. Some have a little bit more. So instead of leveling up and wasting some points on a skill that you really don't want but you kind of need, just go after all the skill books instead. It's a little bit better, and you could save those points to put into guns or speech, because let's be honest, that's what we all do. Legend of the Star. This is talking about the legendary 50 Sunset Sarsaparilla Star Bottle Caps quest. That can be started by entering the Sunset Sarsaparilla headquarters. And talking to Festus, we can learn a little bit more about this Legend of the Star.
Woohoo! You did it, partner! Bullet for you! Old Festus knew you could do it. I suppose you'll be wanting that prize now. Well then, hold on to your hat, 'cause it's a doozy. Not many people have heard the true story behind Sunset Sarsaparilla. Well, it's a right honor. And now, without further ado, your prize, the Legend of the Star. Long ago, people didn't have a heap of choices when it came to soft drinks. It was either water or Nuka-Cola. Now, the threat of legal action forces me to say that Nuka-Cola is a swell beverage, but sometimes people just wanted something different, you know? So one day, a man, a saloon owner in a small town, decided to make a new type of soft drink and asked his patrons what flavor they'd like it to be. After getting no help from them, a stranger at the end of the bar suggested the man make a sarsaparilla-flavored drink. The stranger said he would happily share his family's recipe for the drink on one condition. The condition being that the stranger would be allowed to sample the bottle whenever he liked to ensure the recipe was being followed to the letter. The man happily agreed, thinking the drink would make him rich, and the stranger promised to meet him by sundown the next day. The next morning, the sheriff stopped by and reported that the stranger's body was found on the side of the town road. He'd been killed by bandits. The man, cursing his luck, closed the saloon early that day, just as the sun began to set. But after he'd locked the doors, he turned around to find an unfamiliar bottle on the bar with a note beneath it. The note was sealed with blue wax in the shape of a star. Opening it, the man found it contained a recipe for a sarsaparilla-flavored drink. Sampling the bottle's contents and finding it singularly delicious, the man gave silent thanks to his mysterious benefactor, wherever he was. Being an honorable man, the saloon owner paid for the stranger's funeral, thinking it was the least he could do to repay him. The saloon owner went on to become rich selling the new drink, and to this day, some bottles of
And this quest involves you collecting 50 Sunset Sarsaparilla Star bottle caps that can be found in various locations throughout the Mojave. And there's even a chance that you can get one of these caps just by drinking Sunset Sarsaparilla in-game. And upon collecting all 50 caps, you can return to Festus, and he will congratulate you, and will tell you about the origins of the star on the caps. And after listening to Festus' spiel, you can head further into the vault, where we can find even more goodies. Inside the prize vault, we can find 1,500 caps, around 319 Sunset Sarsaparilla deputy badges, which were technically considered the quote-unquote real prize of the star hunt. But what we're interested in is the weapon Pew Pew, which is going to be found on the body of Alan Marks, along with this holotape.
I guess this is it. Not much air left now. Minutes maybe. And this is what I have to show for it. I guess the joke's on me. Probably shouldn't have killed all those people. Probably should have stayed at home and taken care of my mom. She always used to say people who murder and steal die bad in the end. Said they...
So not only do we get rich with 1,500 caps, but we also get a pretty interesting unique weapon. Now this whole quest was actually based on a real-life urban legend, the Tootsie Roll Pop Legend of the Star. And this urban legend claims that a wrapper with an Indian shooting a star on it can be redeemed for free candy. And this urban legend got so big that the creators of the Tootsie Pop actually came out with an official statement. And they said that since the creation of the Tootsie Pop in 1931, the meaning and origin of the shooting star on the wrapper has become a topic of discussion and has been in circulation for generations. It has been rumored that local convenience stores used to give a free Tootsie Pop to anyone who brought in a wrapper containing the image of a shooting star. Unfortunately, we do not know how this rumor started, and Tootsie Roll Industries has never actually honored this promotion. In fact, the shooting star appears in 1 in every 4 to 6 Tootsie Pop wrappers, just as frequent as the other images. However, we do believe that the star is a sign of good luck to come. So this one quest in Fallout New Vegas, the Legend of the Star, was based off a real-life urban legend, and Josh Sawyer himself even tweeted out that he was finally throwing out all the Tootsie Roll Pop wrappers that were the inspiration for the Legend of the Star in Fallout New Vegas. Cut post-game. At some point in time in Fallout New Vegas' development, after the Battle of Hoover Dam and after the Endslides, you would have been able to continue playing and exploring all of the numerous locations that we've seen so far, but after the war. So exploring Freeside or Vegas under NCR control, or exploring other locations under Legion control. And this got so far into development that there's actually a lot of quotes out there that have different reactions depending on who won the battle. And there's an excellent video by Triangle City that I will link in the description called New Vegas Post-Game Cut Content that talks all about this. So if you're more interested in this, it's like a 20-minute video. Go check it out, links down below in the description. But the reason this never came to fruition is for 2 reasons. 1, budget and time. This would have required them to basically remake the game multiple different times, depending on which ending you went with. So not only would they have had to change things for an NCR ending, but change things for a Legion ending, a Yes Man ending, and a Mr. House ending. And that's not even talking about the numerous other choices that you have in game. So them doing this would have taken a lot of time and resources from the DLCs and everything else in game. And the other reason is for artistic choice. They wanted to have a satisfying post-game story. They wanted the game ending to actually end. And they felt that they couldn't really deliver what they were wanting if they would have allowed you to continue playing. Hence why they gave us the post-game slides, which honestly, I really love. And adding that and the budget and time reasons, then you can kind of see why we really never got post-game content. Pre-order bonuses. Now, if you are somewhat new to Fallout New Vegas, you might not even know about this. But there were 4 pre-order bonus packs that you could get that were retailer exclusive. And what I mean by that is, depending on where you pre-ordered it from, you got a different pack. So for example, if you pre-ordered at GameStop or EB Games, you got the Classic Pack, which gave you an armored Vault 13 suit, your Vault 13 canteen, which you will occasionally take a sip from, a weathered 10mm pistol, and 5 stim packs. And if you got it through Amazon, you got the Tribal Pack. Tribal raiding armor, broad machete, 5 bleak venom doses, and 10 throwing spears. If you got it through Walmart or Steam, you got the Caravan Pack. Lightweight leather armor, sturdy caravan shotgun, 4 repair kits, and binoculars. And last but not least, if you got it through Best Buy, you got the Mercenary Pack. Lightweight metal armor, mercenary grenade rifle, 3 super stim packs, and 3 doctor bags. And honestly, I kind of liked this back in the day. I liked how, depending on where you went and where you got it from, you could get certain things. Instead of everybody just going to GameStop or getting it on Steam, there was an incentive to go to other places. And that's probably not something we'll see too much of in the future, if at all. Ravens. Now, ravens in the game serve virtually no purpose whatsoever, except for by killing them you get 1 XP. But other than that, they're really just kinda used to set the tone of certain areas. You want an area to feel desolate and abandoned, throw a couple ravens in there that fly away right when you get near them. But there is one theory that I have heard, and that is that Caesar's Legion actually uses the ravens as spies and as carriers. If they need to send messages out to multiple informants, they use ravens. They're abundant and they're very smart. So next time you see a raven, depending on who you're siding with, you can either let it go and continue on with delivering its message, or take it out and possibly save a couple lives. Low intelligence checks. If you decide to give your courier low intelligence, and I mean like a 1, that will open up a door to a variety of mischief that you can get into. New speech dialogues and new interactions are going to be plentiful.
You're one of them special folks, ain't you? They ain't real snakes, see? They're Legion soldiers. I just called them snakes because they're low down and sneaky. Like a snake. Anyway, we always have trouble with Legion around here.
Sorry, son. I fixed up your head as best I knew how. I guess I missed a spot.
Vegas Underground. The Vegas sewers are a place in the game that often gets overlooked, especially by your casual player, over and over again, and never really experience the sewers. The closest they would ever get would be going down to the Thorn and sexting up Red Lucy. But outside the Thorn, there is an entire sewer network that you can explore. There's only a couple quests down here to actually do, and none of them are really big ones, so it's no wonder a lot of people never really find their way down here. In these central sewers, there's an unmarked quest called Cajoling a Cudgel, in which if you enter these central sewers, you can make your way down to this sealed door. And in order to open it, we're gonna wanna find the key, which can be found on the body of Sweet Jill or Blind Luke. And after getting the key, we can make our way through the door and find the body of a dead prospector, where on his body will be the unique lead pipe, the Humble Cudgel. Now that one is an unmarked quest, so it's never really going to point you down into the sewers. But the side quest, Someone to Watch Over Me, will. Heading into the North Vegas Square, which is another location that a lot of people probably have never even been to, and talking to Crandon, he will give us a quest. And during the quest, at one point, Crandon will ask you to go down to the sewers and get rid of a bunch of troublemakers. And this will lead you to a group of greasers, with their leader, Greasy Johnny. And you will have a couple different options to deal with them. You can pass a speech check, you can bribe him, or just simply kill him and his gang. And then after that, you can report back to Crandon and finish the quest. Now, even for that quest, it does take you to the sewers, but you really don't do too much down here. And there are even some cut sewer locations. There was a cut northwest sewers and a cut southwest sewers. It definitely seems like they want to flesh out the whole sewer system a lot more and put a lot more things to do in it, but unfortunately, it seems like they were just unable to. Zetans. The Zetans are an alien race in the Fallout universe that mainly like to dick around on Earth and kidnap people and experiment on them. They don't really have too much of an impact in Fallout New Vegas. They're really only available if you have the Wild Wasteland trait. If you have the Wild Wasteland trait active and you head up north to this location, you will see a giant flying saucer. But unfortunately, it seems like it ain't got no gas in it. And just below it around a fire, we can find 3 Zetans. And if we end up taking them out, we can get a pretty cool alien blaster. And other than that, they really don't have too big of an impact in Fallout New Vegas, which is kind of a shame considering how close we are to Area 51. Convincing Swank. Swank is the number 2 of the Tops Casino, right behind Benny. And during the quest Ring-a-Ding-Ding, instead of just walking in and killing Benny like the bad boy you are, you can instead talk to Swank, where you can convince him that Benny is up to no good and has to go. Convincing him can require one of two things. Either one, passing 3 different speech checks. You will need at least a speech check skill of 45, or 2, showing him some physical evidence that you can collect along the way, such as a distinctive cigarette butt from the Good Springs Cemetery, a written note from Novak, and the engraved lighter that you can get from the cons in Boulder City. And say you don't have a high enough speech check and you forgot all of that, you can also go talk to Yes Man and tell Swank everything that you know. And once you have Swank on board, you pretty much have permission to take Benny out. And of course, there are a couple different ways you can go about doing that. And after crucifying Benny, because let's be honest, totally deserved it, Swank will be the new guy in charge. Fallout New Vegas playing cards. The Vault playing cards were a promotional item included with the collector's edition of Fallout New Vegas, and it's a deck of 55 cards, 52 playing cards, 2 jokers, and 1 caravan rule card. Now the backs of all these cards are random locations in the game, such as Vault 21, Ultralux, Silver Rush, The Tops, the Atomic Wrangler, Lucky 38, Gamora, and the Bison Steven. But the actual faces of these cards are where it gets interesting. The 2 jokers are going to be the Courier and Benny, and all of the other faces are going to be random characters throughout the game. But what's very interesting is that these cards were made pretty early on in development, and there are a lot of noticeable changes. For instance, Ulysses is the 3 of clubs, even though Ulysses wasn't in the base game and only came with the Lonesome Road DLC. The 2 of diamonds is going to have Marilyn and Jane, even though only one of those 2 sex bots actually appears in the game. If we take a look at Ambassador Crocker, you'll notice something is rather off. Instead of being black like he is in game, on the card he is white. And the reason for the change was actually because of a mix-up with his voice actor. And if we take a look at the Jack of Clubs, which is Volpes and Colta, on the card he has blonde hair and blue eyes, but in the game it's the complete opposite. So throughout a lot of these cards, you'll notice a bunch of small things like that that don't quite add up with what we got in the game. But still, these cards are freaking awesome. I bought the collector's edition and I own the deck of these, and I gotta say, if you're a Fallout New Vegas fan, this is something you definitely want. Dead Money alternate ending. So if you've played Dead Money, you probably know all about the usual endings, but there is a hidden, unique ending that you can't get. In order to do this, all you want to do is have talked with Veronica about Elijah, and have a very negative reputation with the NCR. And when talking to Elijah, you will get this unique dialogue.
I've read your Pip-Boy, seen what you've done. If you wish to end them, I could use someone like you. Resourceful, uncompromising. NCR has many soldiers, many citizens. Perhaps I was too quick to put a collar on a potential ally. Very well. I'll come down and show you what the Sierra Madre has in store.
And that will lead to this ending.
In the years that followed, the legend of the Sierra Madre faded, and there were no new visitors to the city. Years later, when a mysterious blood-red cloud began to roll across the Mojave, then west toward the Republic, no one knew where it had come from. Only that it brought death in its wake. Attempts to find the source of the toxic cloud failed. The Mojave was cut off. Through the cloud, lights were seen from Helios 1. There were stories of ghosts immune to gunfire who struck down anyone they saw with rays of light. The last chapter of the Mojave came when a modified Repcon rocket struck Hoover Dam, releasing a blood-red cloud, killing all stationed there. All attempts to penetrate the cloud and retake the dam failed, and both the NCR and Legion finally turned away from it, citing the place as cursed. In the years that followed, the legend of the Sierra Madre faded, and there were no new visitors to the city. Only 2 remained alive in the depths of the cloud at the Sierra Madre, waiting for their new world to begin again.
Now, unfortunately, you can't continue playing after this ending, but it has come to my attention There is a mod called Masters of the Madre, which I am just learning about now and I'm very upset by that allows you to continue playing after joining forces with Elijah. The toxic cloud will invade the Mojave. You will have your army of holograms. And just looking at this mod page, this is something that I might have to try for my next playthrough. Prim's Working Casino. Now, if you're one of those people that once you complete an area and you've done all the quests, you never go back, then you probably have never realized that the Vicky and Vance Casino in Prim can actually be a real casino. There's only a couple things you have to do. First, naturally, you have to clear out all of the convicts. Then you want to wait 3 in-game days. When you come back to the casino, you will find a group of NCR deserters. You want to deal with them in a calm and peaceful way. And after you have peacefully dealt with them, you want to wait another 3 in-game days, and then the casino will be open. But what's sad about me saying that this casino is open is that the Vicky and Vance Casino and the Bison Steven, the ones that are actually in Prim, their real life counterparts in the real world Prim are all closing down. So it's only a matter of time until Fallout New Vegas's Vicky and Vance Casino outlast the real thing. Reputation speech checks. Sometimes your reputation with a certain faction can have consequences when it comes to conversation checks. For example, if you're idolized by the NCR, at some points that's going to come in handy when talking to certain people. So instead of them telling you to just fuck off, they would be way more willing to accept your help.
This is a restricted area. State your business. Your being here is a start, soldier. We aren't exactly overflowing with troopers here. But if you really want to help us, talk to the idiot with sunglasses in the back of the plant building.
Legendary creatures. Throughout Fallout New Vegas, there are numerous legendary creatures that are the apex predators of their species, such as the legendary Deathclaw, which can be found in the Deadwind Cavern. Not only is it much more intimidating than a regular Deathclaw, but it also has a unique knockback effect that will send you into a ragdoll state. There's also the legendary Cazador, which can be found in the Silver Peak Mine. And if you thought regular Cazadors were annoying enough, well, now get ready for a legendary one. If you head over to the Fireroot Cavern, you can come into contact with the legendary Fire Gecko. If you find your way near the Bloodborne Cave, heading inside, you will eventually be able to find the legendary Night Stalker. Now, all of those legendary creatures are definitely going to give you a fight. But probably one of the strongest legendary creatures has to be the legendary Bloatfly, which makes an appearance in the Old World Blues DLC. Heading to the mysterious cave in Big Mountain, you can eventually come across a larger-than-life legendary Bloatfly. The legendary Bloatfly will do around the same amount of damage as that of a Deathclaw alpha male, and that's coming from a Bloatfly. And if you thought that was bad enough, it also has twice the health of the legendary Deathclaw. And that's not the only thing it can do. If you target its brain and vats and you end up crippling it, it will cause a frenzy, which will cause this thing to go insane and even start attacking nearby allies. Now those are the main legendary creatures, but you could also classify some other ones in the legendary category, even though they don't have it in their name, such as the King Lakelurk or the Queen Radscorpion. And there's also a bunch of other unique enemies that you can find throughout the Waste and throughout the DLCs, but those are just the main legendary ones. Ghost of She. This is a Sorrow's legend in the Honest Hearts DLC, where according to Waking Cloud, a child once wandered into a Yaoguai's cave before her naming ceremony and was eaten by the Yaoguai, and the Sorrows believe that the little girl and the Yaoguai became one, becoming the Ghost of She.
Long ago, a girl lived among this tribe. She was a curious child and a clever one, and her mother had a devil's time watching over her. One day, the child slipped away from camp and went to play in the caves nearby. The girl did not know that a Yaoguai slept in that cave. The girl died. The tribe wept. For the girl had died before her naming day, and her ghost would remain restless and wandering upon the earth. Many hunters tried to kill the beast, but it eluded them or drove them off. The shaman said that since it had consumed the girl, the two were one. So we call the beast Ghost of She, for the child had no name to be called. That is the story of the ghost of She. It is a sad story. It is our story.
And you as the courier can eventually vanquish this spirit in the Rite of Passage quest, where you have to take drugs and kill Bear. And upon doing so, you will get the unique weapon, She's Embrace. Prospectors. Prospectors can be found all over the Mojave, and are essentially just scavengers. They specialize in searching for old pre-war tech and weapons to sell. I mean, hey, you gotta make a living somehow. Now, they are not hostile towards you, and unfortunately for them, can be killed without gaining any negative karma. And like I said, they can be found all over the Mojave Wasteland, everywhere from the El Dorado gas and service station all the way to Coyote Mines. And there even are some named prospectors. One of them you might know, Easy Pete, even though he is retired now and just sits there all day hoarding his dynamite because he's selfish. Weapon Binding Ritual. This is a consumable item that was introduced in the Honest Hearts DLC, and essentially it's a tribal version of Psycho. This ritual would be performed shortly before battle, so that many tribals could be numb to the pain, and sharpen their minds and their fighting spirit, making them just all that more deadlier. And some flavor text with the item says that you have sacrificed a portion of your life's blood to become one with your weapon. Your eyes will be keen and your limbs will not break, and your claws will strike like thunder. Fight only with your hands or the weapons of your hands to know this glory in combat. And this item can actually be pretty useful for weapons that don't do that much damage. The Weapon Binding Ritual actually gives a larger damage boost than Psycho when weapons do a less than 40 damage. But if the weapon's damage is over 40, Psycho does the better job. So if your weapon isn't that strong, then this would be very, very useful. And this item can also be crafted. All you're going to need is healing powder, knife, a leather belt, and some wonder glue. Hit up a campfire or a hot plate, have a melee weapon skill of 25, and there you go. House's Obituary. If you decide to be a naughty little courier and end up killing Mr. House, this note will be added to your inventory, and it's titled, "A Tragedy Has Befallen All Mankind." And it reads, Robert Edwin House, 2061, President, CEO, and sole proprietor of the New Vegas Strip, industrialist and technologist. Founder, president, and CEO of the multi-billion-dollar pre-war robotics and software corporation, Robco Industries, has died. Generally recognized by Mr. House to be mankind's only hope of long-term survival, Mr. House's passing may well sound a death knell for the entire human race. Lost forever is his bounty of knowledge concerning human longevity, the depth and breadth of which could, as he was apt to say, fill several textbooks. He was not exaggerating. Though he did not achieve all his goals of functional immortality, let us not forget that he died at the age of 261. How many people do that? I mean, come on. Also lost forever are House's singular personality, force of will, vision, and leadership ability. The probability of an equally capable figure emerging from the current human population to lead mankind to a future of equivalent quality is less than 0.000112%. By objective measures too complex to detail in this obituary. Personality and force of will. Born June 25th, 2020, House was orphaned at an early age when his parents died in a freak accident. Autogyro lightning. Though cheated of his inheritance, House attended the prestigious institute in Massachusetts and founded Robco Industries on his 22nd birthday. Within 5 years, it was one of the most profitable corporations on Earth. By 2065, House was certain that an atomic war would soon devastate the planet. At great personal expense, he developed technologies to ensure the structural integrity of the city of Las Vegas, as it was known at the time. On the day of the Great War, 77 atomic warheads targeted the city. Mr. House defeated them all. Talk about vision. Leadership. Mr. House survived the war, of course, and would later recruit the three families, negotiate the Treaty of New Vegas, and rebuild the Vegas Strip. While these achievements yielded many immediate benefits, they were all part of House's master plan to reignite mankind's quest for technological advancement, a plan without which the human race has nowhere to go and nowhere to turn. We'll revise and finish this later. I've set the age at death to update automatically. A bit makes salient points, but pearls before swine, of course. Let's hope the ingrates never have cause to read it. Who knows how many of them are even literate. And a little Easter egg in that obituary, the note actually pays homage to Vladimir Nabokov's novel Lolita, where in the novel the main character nonchalantly mentions the death of his mother by saying, My very photogenic mother died in a freak accident. Picnic lightning when I was 3. And in House's obituary, he says, House was orphaned at a very early age when his parents died in a freak accident. Autogyro lightning. Companions cut scream. This is a very disturbing bit of cut content, mainly because it sounds just terrifying. When one of your companions gets set on fire, they were originally going to scream for their life. And it's no wonder that this was cut because my god is this horrifying. Fiend faction disguise. At one point in New Vegas's development, there were talks about having a Fiend faction disguise, where you could play dress up and pretend to be a murderous drug addict. Now, unfortunately, the creator of the Fiends ended up deciding to not go with this idea, and didn't really give a good explanation why, just said that they decided to not do it. And that kind of does suck. I feel like this would have fleshed out the Fiends a little bit more, and they could have probably given us a couple more people to talk to and learn more about the Fiends through. High luck checks. Luck not only gives you better critical chance and better odds at the casino, but there are also some special interactions that you can get if you have a high enough luck. If your luck is 7 or higher and you're at the RepCon headquarters, you can correctly guess the code phrase to prevent the mobile facial recognition scanner from kicking you out. And if you have a 9 luck, you can successfully operate and remove the brain tumor that's killing Caesar. Elijah's holotape. At the end of the Dead Money DLC, after you have dealt with Father Elijah, you can pick up Elijah's holomessage in the abandoned Brotherhood of Steel bunker. And the transcript reads, "This holomessage is locked. A label on the front reads, 'For Veronica.' A strange sensor on the back seems to be tied to a locking mechanism. And you can take this message to Veronica and it will trigger some unique dialogue."
You did? Where? Oh my god, I mean, I thought... I don't even know what I thought might have happened to him. But you don't have a "this is good news" expression on your face. You killed him? But it doesn't matter. He died when we all retreated to Hidden Valley. I didn't expect to see him again. No one did. Did he say anything when you met him? Anything at all? Where did you get this? Guess I was right about the bad news, huh? Same look Elder McNamara always gave me when I was up for promotion. All right. I'll watch it. That was hard to watch. The parts I understood didn't matter. Past all the garbage, all it amounted to was goodbye. Sorry. Feel a little out of it. Head spinning a bit. Oh. I think he left me a gift. Maybe I can use it better than he did.
And if you end up giving this message to Veronica, you will get Elijah's last word perk. And getting this perk grants 150 increase to Veronica's melee attack speed, as well as a 25% chance for her melee attacks to inflict a knockdown. Or if you decide to make Veronica hand you back the message, you will instead get Elijah's ramblings, which will grant a permanent 50% increase to damage dealt by critical hits when using melee weapons. Brahmin tipping. Brahmin tipping is something that has been in Fallout ever since the original one. It's also been in Fallout 2, 3, New Vegas, and even in Tactics. And it was even in Fallout 76 during the Nuka World on Tour event. But in Fallout New Vegas, almost every single Brahmin besides a couple can be tipped. You want to crouch up to it and hit the activate button, while either unarmed or with your weapon holstered. And the Brahmin will enter a ragdoll-like state. And after a couple seconds, it'll get back up like nothing happened. And what's pretty funny is that this actually counts towards your knocked up challenge, where you must knock down 100 enemies via inflicting a knockdown status effect. Now, Brahmin tipping is of course based off of the real-life urban legend cow tipping, which is an urban legend that started back in around the 1970s. That was supposedly the activity of sneaking on an unsuspecting or sleeping cow and pushing them over for entertainment. Now, this is definitely an urban legend. Cows don't really sleep standing up. Cows will routinely lie down to sleep. And in case you didn't know, cows are very, very big. Trying to push one over that does not want to be pushed over is not something your average human would be able to do. Cows can weigh over 900 pounds. And if one doesn't want to be pushed over, you're not going to push it over. It seems like the myth began in the 70s and really took off in the 80s when movies like Tommy Boy and Heathers featured cow tipping in it. So no matter what you are in real life, you're not built different like your Fallout New Vegas courier, and you're not going to be pushing over Brahmin or cows. Wind Brahmin. Wind Brahmin are another name for tumbleweeds in the game, and they are repeatedly called this by Nightkin. One good example is if you head into the north end of the cattle pen of the Brooks Tumbleweed Ranch, you will meet a Nightkin. He will uncloak himself and attempt to sell you a Wind Brahmin, or all of the caps. And if you refuse, he turns hostile.
You want to buy Wind Brahmin? Right here. Where did you come from? Tumble what? Crazy with low prices on Wind Brahmin. You buy one. All. They are very good, Wind Brahmin. All caps. You not buy, then you die.
Now, one interesting thing that never made it into the final version of the game about these supposed Wind Brahmin is that if you would have actually purchased one from this Nightkin, the Wind Brahmin would have followed the player around at a great distance, so that you would always be unsure if that was just your mind playing tricks on you or there was something following you in the distance. Cut slave voice lines. In New Vegas, slaves really don't have much to say. If you try to talk to them, they'll just say excuse me. But originally they were going to have a lot more things to say. They would have commented on companions, you, depending on what your reputation with the Legion was, and various other things going on around the Mojave.
What a strange floating robot. Is it useful for anything?
How disgusting. You can see that strange mechanical mongrel's brain.
What is that thing? I've never seen a blue mutant.
Ugh, one of the burned people walks in our camp. You're a woman, and yet you wander free. Huh.
Gaben. Gaben is a Frumentari in a Caesar's Legion, and you've probably never met him. But he appears in Nipton if Vulpes and Colta dies before you ever reach Nipton. And he is essentially just a stand-in for everything that Vulpes would do, except for he has a little bit more dialogue and is a little bit more forthcoming with information about the Legion.
Well, I've heard of you. The courier upon whom mighty Kaisar has bestowed his mark. Don't worry, I won't have you lashed to a cross like the rest of these degenerates. It's useful that you happen by. I want you to witness the fate of Nipton, to memorize every detail. And then, when you move on, well, I'd like you to move west towards the Mojave outpost, to let the profligates there know about the little sermon I prepared for them here. The Legion is civilization reborn. Our culture is based on virtues such as martial excellence, loyalty, and justice. But you'll learn all there is to know in due time. Legatus Linnaeus, Monster of the East, will soon arrive to command Kaisar's troops in battle. The dam will fall, and the rest of the profligate West will soon follow. Legatus Linnaeus, Monster of the East. Quite a man, if man he be. Kaisar prides himself on selecting the right tool to overcome each new obstacle. In Linnaeus, he found his hammer. He's never been defeated in battle. 14 tribes have laid down arms at his boots. Another 5 rendered extinct. His latest campaign in the wilds of the Utah has concluded, and he is en route. When he arrives, your doom arrives with him.
Prim reputation. Now, a lot of places in the Mojave have a reputation system. Good Springs, Novak, and a lot of others. But one that surprisingly didn't was Prim. There is still the icon of it and a bunch of stuff left in the files, but but the actual reputation itself is not in the game. And it seems like maybe the reason for this was just because there wasn't really enough to do in Primm. Once you got the new sheriff, that was pretty much it. There wasn't really much left to do. Rex belonged to Caesar. Yes, your adorable cybernetic dog was once a part of the Legion. If you happen to take Rex to the fort and you end up talking to Antony, you will get a little bit more insight about Rex.
The mechanical dog you have with you, where did you get it? I ask because Caesar once had a similar pet, but it was lost during a battle.
So it seems like at some point in time, Rex was a warhound for Caesar, and when the Legion went to sack Denver, Rex ended up getting lost. And if you actually look at Rex from the side, you can see the fading of a Legion bull that was painted on him. And even Rex's name is Latin for king. And during one of the ending slides, if you decided to transplant Rex's brain with Lupa's brain, you get this ending.
With the transplant of Lupa's brain, Rex gained all of the donor's experiences traveling with the Legion. These melded well with his own memories of the Legion, and his new mind quickly adjusted to the myriad memories.
So yes, your mechanical dog was once a part of the Legion. Mad Brahmin. Just north of New Vegas, you can find a very unique type of Brahmin, a Mad Brahmin, which are in a frenzied state and will always be hostile towards you, unless you have the Animal Friend perk. And I have seen a couple interesting theories to explain why these Brahmin are so crazy. And one of them is that if you look in the trough right next to these crazed Brahmin, you will find that it's filled with human remains. So maybe these Brahmin are going insane because they don't have the world's best diet. Marrying Cass. During the development process of Fallout New Vegas, there was a pretty unique encounter that would have involved Cass. At some point, you would have gotten wildly drunk with her, and woke up the next morning with her right next to you. And you would have learned that you two had gotten married, and the king had done the proceedings, and he followed it up with an Elvis song. Now, if you've ever played the game, you will know that unfortunately, this never came to be. Gecko-backed. This is talking about the Gecko-backed leather armor reinforced, which is a piece of light armor that you can get in the game with the Honest Hearts DLC. It provides a damage threshold of 15, as well as a 15 increase to fire, poison, and radiation resistance. And it's more durable than the standard variants, but it's also 3 pounds heavier. Now to get this armor, it must be crafted. You can't find it or loot it or anything. To do this, you're going to need leather armor reinforced, tanned fire gecko hide, tanned golden gecko hide, and tanned green gecko hide. You want to hit up a campfire or a hot plate, and with a survival skill of 90, you can create this armor. Scripture. This is a miscellaneous item that you can get at the end of the Honest Hearts DLC, and it's a small King James Bible with a thin golden cross on the cover. And throughout the DLC, you can sometimes occasionally see Joshua Graham, Daniel, and Waking Cloud reading it. And it can be given to the courier through Daniel, or at the end of the DLC in the footlocker near the Southern Passage. Now, unfortunately, you can't do anything with this. It's just a miscellaneous item, and it's not really worth anything more than 5 caps, but it's what it represents, and its meaning of us putting a cap in General Gobbledygook that really makes us want to hold on to it.
Outman. Kunaman mad. He kill all white legs. You talk. You stop. Baika cur. You devil!
Mythbusters. This one is, I'm pretty sure, talking about 3 certain individuals that you can find in game. Now, if you've ever taken a certain quest by Miss Alice McLafferty called You Can Depend on Me, she will task you with infiltrating the gun runners and finding out about some certain manufacturing processes. Now, you can completely opt out of this quest and just say, yeah, that's not for me, or you can gladly accept it. If you do accept it and stealthily sneak in, you will notice that the gun runners that are working on firearms seem to match 3 certain individuals, mainly from Mythbusters. You'll notice a guy with white hair that seems to resemble Adam Savage. You'll notice another guy with a very peculiar mustache and some glasses. That one, of course, is Jamie. And of course, you can't forget about the redhead, Carrie, who was the best part about Mythbusters, that we can all agree on. Drinking contest. During the quest, You Can Depend on Me, given to you by Alice McLafferty, she tells you to buy out Cassidy caravans. And there are multiple different ways you can do this, but one way you can do it is to challenge Cass to a drinking contest.
You challenging me? Serious now. All right, you come here armed with whiskey. We'll make a sport of it. And none of that radioactive shit. I'm talking whiskey. Not Dixon whiskey. Whiskey. I'll be waiting then. And training.
In order to do this, you're going to need a 75 barter skill and a minimum of at least 6 endurance. Challenging Cass will give you the holotape Cass's Whiskey Challenge, which says Cass wants you to supply a dozen bottles of whiskey for her whiskey challenge, after which she'll try to drink you under the table.
All right then. I already got a head start, but I'll go first anyway. Well, guess you're a little tougher than I thought. Still looks like you're feeling it, eh, Slick? Aw, now ain't that sweet. You know, you put up a good fight. I'm impressed. Thing is, I really just wanted an excuse to drink. Should last me for a while. Might just be the whiskey talking, but I think I might feel a whole lot better leaving the caravan business behind me. Makes me a little teary-eyed, but now I've got a bottle to put him in. Hand over that paper. I'll put my name to it. All right, then. I already got a head start, but I'll go first anyway. Oh my fucking god. Get away from me, all 4 of you. Don't need your... Oh god, I think I'm gonna be sick. And you look fine. No. You got me beat. I'm done. Caravan's yours. Give me that paper. I'll put my name to it.
Ghoul Delusions. This is talking about Chris Haversam, who you can find at the RepCon test site helping Jason Bright, and he seems to be a little bit delusional, in that he thinks he's a ghoul. He grew up in Vault 34, and he believed that the radiation he absorbed from his many visits to the Vault reactor would eventually turn him into a ghoul, and this fear in his mind only seemed to manifest itself when he naturally started going bald, and that made him think that he was going through ghoulification.
I was human once, you know. Grew up in Vault 34, northeast of here. Nice upbringing if you like assault rifles and target practice. But oh, you prefer machines that don't shoot people? Not so nice then. Who should maintain the Vault's reactor? Hauser? Mitchell? No. Make it Haversam. He likes machines. Haversam won't mind getting irradiated. Haversam won't mind mutating. He's already ugly as it is. Haversam won't mind when his hair starts falling out after a few years. There's no connection, Haversam. You're neurotic.
So with this human that's going bald, believing that he is a ghoul, he eventually found his way into the Bright Brotherhood, where he would help the ghouls on their great journey. And depending on the actions from the courier, many different things can play out. Eventually, towards the end of the quest, you can convince Chris that he is indeed human, with a speech check or the Black Widow perk, and that the rest of the Bright Brotherhood unfortunately cannot take him with them. And then you will be faced with an option. You can either convince Chris to help sabotage the rockets, or you can tell Chris to leave it alone. And depending on your actions, you'll get these 2 endings.
Though Novak was a low-priority target for the Legion, many of Novak's citizens died in its defense. In the weeks that followed, several Bright followers returned to Novak to help restore its defenses, allowing it to remain independent of NCR. While the destruction of the RepCon rockets appeared to be a boon, to the salvagers of Novak, the benefit would never be realized. Radioactive fuel from the wrecked ships seeped out and contaminated the area. Salvagers were forced to move on, and the town was abandoned.
Now, Chris is actually a reference to two things. First, a character from The Honeymooners named Mr. Faversham. And Chris is also very similar to Saint Christopher, the patron saint of travel. Both were spared from grisly fates by the same religious group that they help. And they were both also immortalized by the same religious groups. And they were both revered as religious figures at the end of their stories, by helping their followers reach a paradise. So next time you play Fallout New Vegas and you're interacting with Chris, you are interacting with Saint Christopher from The Honeymooners. Cut Old World Blues ending. Unfortunately, yes, there is a cut Old World Blues ending that's actually really cool. So you know how we have the alternate ending in the Dead Money DLC? Well, it seems like there was planned to be one in Old World Blues, where you could actually join the think tank. And we have two things for it, the ending slide, and Chris Avalon actually gave us the entire text for the outro.
In the decades following the Battle of Hoover Dam, the Big Empty remained a desolate stretch of wasteland where few travelers dared venture. In time, however, a strange blue field began to grow, slowly spreading across the Big Empty. Lightning blue fields of force danced on the horizon like electrical storms. People whispered of floating spheres, flickering like a rainbow of torches in the desert like old world wisps. Then communities began to vanish. Good Springs was crushed beneath bizarre hexcrete blocks that stacked to the sky. The inhabitants of Prim winked out, flesh fried into X-ray silhouettes, their arms raised in surrender. A satellite fell on Jacobstown, beaming a kaleidoscope of bright blue equations into the deranged Nightkin minds, driving some berserk, paralyzing others. Black Mountain Radio began broadcasting a strange staccato static as hordes of giant man-eating battle Brahmin began to swarm from its peak. Camp Searchlight became a garden of giant carnivorous plants. And the Colorado River shrugged one day, drowning several communities as its contours adjusted themselves. The Gomorrah became home to a particularly virulent vegetation-based STD that grew like a fungus within victims' genitalia until their bodies burst open like pods. The Legion East were systematically brain-scrubbed and rebuilt so that all the inhabitants believed they were in ancient Rome, on the moon. And the human cattle of NCR were re-educated into believing they existed in perpetuity in a nationwide version of someplace called Tranquility Lane. In the end, no one was sure who had cracked the dome of the Big Empty, although it was clear someone had been playing with forces they did not understand. Throughout all this, the think tank was industrious, confident these experiments were all for the best, the results of the data they obtained incredible. They marveled that all of this had been waiting for them to come along and experiment since the war. Humanity certainly was persistent, no matter what experiments, nuclear holocaust or otherwise, it inflicted on itself.
Now, try to take a wild guess as to why this was cut. It was Bethesda. Chris Avalon, of course, tweeted out this. Yep, it was the cut ending if the think tank quote-unquote won. And we had ending slides and everything. Bethesda was like, you better not do this ending shit again after Dead Money. Bad guys don't win. Only Bethesda won. So Bethesda was a little bit upset that you can't have the bad guys win. Even though you can do an evil playthrough in Fallout 3, I don't know, it's Bethesda. I love bananas. This is talking about the unmarked quest, I Love Bananas, where upon reaching Vault 3 and making your way inside by pretending to be a drug runner, you will eventually find your way into the living quarters, and you will see a holding cell occupied by a couple unlucky individuals. And speaking to them, you will learn that they were caravanners that just had to meet the unfortunate fate of getting kidnapped by the fiends, and holding them for a ransom. However, they say that there is no one left alive who's willing to pay said ransom, and it's only a matter of time till the fiends learn that. So they basically beg for your help. And there are a couple different ways you can go about doing this, but essentially it all leads to you freeing them. Now you might be wondering, okay, that's a pretty neat little unmarked quest, but what does the name have to do with anything? Well, two things. All the quests, of course, are named after old songs, and this is no exception. This is named after a song called I Like Bananas because they have no bones.
I like bananas because they have no bones.
So that's the song that this is referencing, but how does that connect to the quest? Well, you learn that one of these caravanners actually acquired the password to the Overseer's computer, and you can get this password from them by either threatening them or freeing them. And wouldn't you know it, the password is I love bananas. Rex and Roxy. Roxy is a cyber dog that you can run into in the Old World Blues DLC. And depending on your actions with her and your actions with Rex, she can actually get a couple different endings. And a couple of those endings actually involve her and Rex getting together and making a bunch of cyber puppies.
The cybernetic canine, designation Roxy, sat in her guard post in X8. That is, until her I'm in heat programming circumvented her stay routine, and she loped into the Mojave. There she ran across Rex at the King's School of Impersonation. His brain was failing. That was all right. He was still smarter than the think tank. The two of them constructed a litter of cyber pups, a small army of Boston terrifiers that gnawed and devoured anything in their path. There she ran across Rex, who had been following the courier, just as she had. They barked for a while and realized they had a lot in common. The two of them constructed a litter of cyber pups, a small army of Boston terrifiers that gnawed and devoured anything in their path. There she ran across the corpse of Rex. She dragged him back to the Big Empty and had him rebuilt for company. The two of them constructed a litter of cyber pups, a small army of Boston terrifiers that gnawed and devoured anything in their path.
Barton Thorne note. Barton Thorne is a prospector that you can meet outside of Goodsprings, and he's involved in the unmarked quest Barton the Fink, where he will run up to you and ask for your help in saving his girl, who is trapped by geckos just up on the ridge. And getting up to the ridge, you'll only find a wild wasteland encounter and a dead prospector. And while heading back down, Thorne will run up to you and say, sorry, but he just needed someone to clear everything out first. And then you teach Barton Thorne a lesson to never lie, because lying is wrong. But there actually is a piece of cut content. There was a note that would have been assigned to Barton. That is called Note to Self, and it reads, remember to not roll off the cliff and kill yourself while you're sleeping. You'll show her, you'll show everyone. What does too stupid to live even mean anyway? So maybe he wasn't completely lying, maybe he did at one point have a girlfriend, but he definitely did learn what it means to be too stupid to live. The Principal. This is a character that's only ever mentioned in the Honest Hearts DLC. The 24 kids that would eventually go on to become the Sorrows, at some time around 21 to 23, ended up escaping a place called the School that was located somewhere near the state of Utah. And the person that ran the school was called the Principal, and was considered a boogeyman-like figure. And they would tell the youngest that if you did not behave, he would come to get them. And we really only learn about this in the year 2123 holotape, and it reads April 25th, 24 of them, half boys, half girls. Youngest is 8 maybe, oldest 13 to 14. Dirty and scrawny, been on foot a long time. Children's Crusade. Struck camp on nearly the same spot as Los Mexicanos, 30 years and a lifetime ago. I've spent 2 nights listening to them. English, literate, one of them reads stories while the little ones fall asleep. They escape some place called the School, but can't figure out where it was. When they want a little one to behave, they tell him to stop or the principal will get you. Principal better not show up or I'll blow his goddamn head off. I can still shoot straight. Now I have seen one fan theory that a lot of people seem to really like, and it suggests that the principal was Dr. Boros, and the school was actually the X8 Research Center. Now, as cool as that does sound, Chris Avallone actually tweeted about this and said, no, although it would have been cool. Liberating the Thorn. There was a cut quest called the Thorn Mayhem, or at least that's what it was called in the files. That would have had you getting into Red Lucy's room and accessing her computer, and there you would have had the option to basically release every single animal that the Thorn has, causing them to run wild and kill everybody in the Thorn. And after they did that, it seemed like they would have made their way to Westside. Now this quest did get cut, so we never got to free all of the poor, helpless Deathclaws that they have brutally chained up, but we still do have a bunch of the cut audio of people reacting to this.
Run! Be scot-free! Deathclaws are loose!
Get out of here!
It can't be. How the hell?
Holy shit, run for your lives!
All hell broke loose when the creatures escaped from the thorn.
One of those beasts cut my friend in half. How the hell did they escape from Red Lucy?
Repcon O sign. Heading to the Repcon test site and taking a look at the sign, you will notice that the O is missing. And heading to the Gibson scrapyard, we can find the thief. It's none other than old lady Gibson herself. She's using it as a chair. And she even has a dialogue option where she says, yeah, there's plenty of cool stuff up there. Even this chair that I have. Thanks, baby. This is talking about a note that Benny will leave a female courier if she happens to bang him and not kill him afterwards. Talk about extreme Stockholm syndrome. The note reads, Pussycat, thanks for showing this cat the best hey he's ever. Talk about platinum in the sack, toots. Where did you learn that 18-karat trick with the heels of your feet? You didn't just make my toes curl, they popped off and rolled onto the bed. I wish I could stay for another round, but this gent's got places to be, things to do. You showing up has forced my hand, baby. The time to act is now. I won't be around for a while, but if everything works out right, you and me are a date. Got it? Wouldn't miss it for all the caps in Vegas. Now don't get clingy and try to follow me. Ciao, Benny. Chupacabra. If you happen to be in Novak and talk to everyone's favorite Novarg Noonan, he will tell you about this strange encounter he had with a Chupacabra.
There's been things of a disturbing nature going on at the McBride Corral. Seems every night one of their herd meets a most unnatural death, and always there's holes all over the body. Work of the Chupacabra, the livestock vampire, says Nobark, but they don't pay no mind. Too many holes, they say, and there's bullets in them. Well, says Nobark, we got a Chupacabra with an automatic weapon. And that's when they get real quiet, because now they see the predicament we're in. I come face to face with the Chupacabra himself one night, whilst I was investigating whether this gecko was hiding his treasure from me. He was the meanest, ugliest Chupacabra you could imagine. Had 2 heads and fangs down to the ground. Best I could tell anyways, since when he come up to me he was invisible. Had himself a blunderbuss, what would rotate and shoot bullets real fast out of a backpack. Never seen nothing like it. Walked right past me having an argument with somebody. But I only saw one Chupacabra, so I guess the other fella had to be invisible too, only more invisible than the other one.
What he's actually referring to is an unmarked quest called The Screams of a Brahmin, where if you talk to Dusty McBride, the ranch owner, he says that something has been killing his Brahmin. And if you decide to go a little bit detective mode, you can stake it out for the night, and eventually come to the realization that a nightkin has been rolling up with a machine gun and opening fire on the Brahmin. How no one heard that and was able to figure this out earlier is beyond me. And after killing this supposed Chupacabra, you can find the Screams of Brahmin holotape, which reads, most of what is recorded here is a mess of incomprehensible, psychotic gibberish. It seems to express a general frustration towards a set of Brahmin who are allegedly keeping the author awake at night by screaming inside his head whenever he closes his eyes. Dislike points. This is exactly what it sounds like. A bunch of points that you can get that will eventually make your companion dislike you, and eventually say they've had enough of your shit and leave.
You activated Archimedes? What the hell are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I'm leaving because you're a sociopath. Good riddance.
Now, a lot of companions usually have to deal with a certain faction. For example, Boone doesn't really want you to go with the Legion, shocker. And Cass doesn't like when you have negative karma. But someone that actually just straight has dislike points is Arcade. If you get up to 6 dislike points, he will permanently leave. And you can trigger dislike points by just saying things that he doesn't like. For example, when you first go to the fort with Arcade, you will get 2 points for saying, with how messed up New Vegas is, do you really think Caesar has nothing to offer? And then if you follow that up by saying, yes, that's exactly what I'm suggesting, when Arcade asks why they are there, he will not be your biggest fan.
Well, at least the mess is ours to clean up. Wait a minute. Am I going crazy, or are you actually suggesting it might not be bad if the Legion takes over? Okay. I just wanted you to confirm that I'm traveling in the company of an insane fascist. Thanks.
Area 51. Now, unfortunately, as cool as it does sound to have Area 51 as a location to go to in Fall New Vegas, it was never really on the table. When Josh Sawyer was asked about it, the question was, New Vegas is tied with Fallout 3 for my favorite game. But my question is, why didn't you guys add Area 51 to the game world, considering how close it is to the Air Force Base? I'm hoping that it will be a DLC because you guys could do a great job. In which he responded, it really isn't that close, and there's not a lot going on in the land between Las Vegas and Area 51. Also, Area 51 is closely associated with, in pop culture anyway, aliens, a subject Bethesda dealt with in Mothership Zeta. And just to double down, somebody asked, was Big Mountain made because you weren't able to use Area 51? I think I saw someone say before you couldn't use Area 51 because Bethesda wanted to use it, in which Sawyer said, no, we never intended to use Area 51. So despite how cool it would have been to have an Area 51 location, I'm kinda glad we got the ones we did instead. Raoul interacting with Private Edwards. Private Edwards is an NCR soldier that was unlucky enough to be at Camp Searchlight when Legion infiltrators opened up canisters of radioactive waste that were stored in the Searchlight fire station, and essentially turned everything in a 3-mile radius into a radioactive hellhole. And Private Kyle Edwards was one of the unfortunate souls that got ghoulified. And with him contemplating his entire life now that everything has completely changed, you can't try to cheer him up. But if you happen to have Raoul as a companion, Raoul will also step up and try to help a boy out.
Cheer up, kid. It's not that bad. Sure, your skin rots off, and you start to stink like a public toilet after Cinco de Mayo. But,
What? How is that not bad? In fact, how could it get worse?
Well, assuming you survive the radiation sickness, the lynch mobs, and the possibility of going feral, one day, you'll get old and decrepit, like me.
Oh, God.
What? Was it something I said?
Scorpion Gang. The Scorpions are a pathetic excuse for a band of raiders in the Mojave. They operate out of the Monte Carlo suites, and when they're not slinging chems, they're routinely getting pounced on by the fiends. And even some of the locals kind of make fun of them for that.
Well, things aren't great here, but I've seen a lot worse. We've got the fiends to the south of us, and that ain't good. The Scorpions hang out at the Monte Carlo when they aren't slinging chems or getting their heads blown off by the fiends. Probably the best thing we've got going on is the co-op, run by Mr. Etienne. Get some help from the followers of the apocalypse, I think. Not much to tell. Typical gang of dumb bullies and angry nobodies. They're holed up a bit south of here, in the Monte Carlo suites. They think they're tough, but anytime they tangle with the fiends, they get torn right up.
So this gang is just a group of pathetic chem peddlers, and they're not even major leagues. They're led by 2 people, Vete and Roller, and this gang will attack the courier on sight. But apparently they are also kind of cowardly, because if you manage to kill enough of them, the rest will try to run and hide inside of the building. Now there was supposed to be a little bit more interactions with this gang. Really all you can do is in the quest Whitewash, you can tell Lieutenant Boyd that the Scorpions were the ones responsible for Corporate White's death. But there is a bit of cut content where they were supposed to have a little bit more role. There would have been a quest involving the gang to get a steady supply of ammunition from the NCR quartermaster at Camp McCarran, but that ended up getting cut, so we never got to see just how effective the Scorpions could actually be. Declaration of Vital Essence. This is a note that you can find in the heavily booby-trapped house in Nipton, and it reads, I, Harry Collins, hereby declare sole proprietorship of Vital Essence, and claim hereto all legitimate rights in defending said essence versus all comers, QED. Town's been going to hell ever since Mayor Stein waltzed in from out west saying he'd put Nipton on the map. Well, we know the real reason he came to town. He came for my Vital Essence. And then more come. The town's been growing by the day, all of them coming for my Vital Essence, as if I didn't know it. And then more come, asking questions like, Harry, why do you spend all your time in that house of yours? You got something special in there? Sniffing around for my essence is what they're doing. I've had enough. I'm locking up my essence, and I'm setting up defenses. No one's going to get their hands on my Vital Essence except old Harry himself. Come what may. Harry Collins. So if you've ever been inside Nipton and wondered why there's one house that's booby-trapped all hell, it wasn't because of the Legion. It was because this man wanted to protect his Vital Essence. Now this note is a reference to the character General Jack D. Ripper from the film Dr. Strangelove, which was a 1964 political comedy, where the character General Jack D. Ripper was obsessed with purity of essence and the protection of his precious bodily fluids. So if you can connect the dots, you can see what old Henry Collins was worried that they were going to steal. Ant Queen. This is talking about the Fire Ant Queen, or the Giant Ant Queen, which is the largest creature in the Mojave, and only one appears in the game. Its location is going to be at the Ant Mound, which is just south of Camp McCarran. And unlike her Fallout 3 counterparts, the Ant Queen in New Vegas is much less durable. Area 2. Area 2 is very much real in-game and in real life. In real life, it is also called Area 2, and is located within the Nevada test site, not too far away from Area 51, and is actually a part of the Nellis Air Force Base. And in the game, it's only ever mentioned, mainly by Pete, who says this.
You're right, they weren't here when we discovered Nellis. We found the guns at a huge weapon depot called Area 2, many miles from here. It took many weeks to drag the guns and their ammunition back to Nellis, and it was the last time any of us set foot beyond our homeland.
And in the Fallout New Vegas official game guide, it has this to say about the boomers. 50 years ago, a group of Vault 34 dissidents struck out on their own and started using Nellis as a base. Over a long period of time, they eventually decided to call Nellis their home. They learned a great deal of information from the records at Nellis, and used that information to open up the weapon storehouses at currently unknown locations called Area 2 and the Hawthorne Army Depot. The results of their efforts was an enormous stockpile of heavy ordnance, artillery, and small nuclear weapons. Wild Child Discount. Wild Child is a reputation that you can have with any faction that reads, "You're wild. Seemingly capricious behavior leads people scratching their heads in confusion and avoiding close contact." And with a lot of different factions, you will get a lot of different responses. But one interesting one is with Mr. Holdout. He's a man on the strip that's willing to sell you some holdout weapons. And if you have a Wild Child reputation, you will get an 85% discount, and he will say, "It's an honor to have my wares used by such a wild badass. Cuts on the house, friend."
Hey there, friend. A bit of advice. You look like you could use some protection. Lucky for you, I got what you need. My stock and trade? All kinds of easy-to-hide weapons for slipping into and out of casinos. They won't give you a second glance. It's an honor to have my wares used by such a wild badass. Cuts on the house, friend.
Consul Officorium. Consul Officorium ab Famulatus, which roughly translates to the Consul of the Offices of Slavery, is a position in Caesar's Legion, and is in charge of the Legion slave trade. And really the only reference we get to this in Fallout New Vegas is from the Bill of Sale, which is the evidence that we can get for Boone that Jeannie Mae Crawford sold his wife Carla to the Legion. The transcript reads, "We, the representatives of the Consul Officorium, have this day bargained and purchased from Jeannie Mae Crawford of the Township of Novac the exclusive rights to ownership and sale of the slave Carla Boone for the sum of 1,000 bottle caps, and those of her unborn child for the sum of 500 bottle caps. The receipt whereof is hereby acknowledged. We warrant the slave and her young to be sound, healthy, and slaves for life. We covenant with the said Jeannie Mae Crawford that we have full power to bargain and sell said slave and her offspring. Payment of an additional 500 bottle caps will be due pending successful maturation of the fetus, the claim to which shall be guaranteed by possession of this document. M. Scribinus Libo Drusus et al., administrators of M. Licinius Crassus, Consul Officorium ab Famulutus." And I'm not even gonna lie, guys, I probably completely messed all of those words up. And in case you don't know, some of those words I read were actually names, and those are named after real individuals from Roman history. The Scribinius Libo Drusus guy was a Roman who was accused of treason against the Emperor Tiberius, and the Licinius Crassus guy was a Roman general and statesman who played a key role in the transformation of the Roman Republic into the Roman Empire, and was often called the richest man in Rome. Snuff tapes. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's a bunch of snuff tapes that we can find as a holotape in the Gomorrah. This can be found in Clandon's suite in a hidden safe behind his dresser. Clandon is a guy that's pretty good with making bombs and making snuff tapes. He was hired by the Emeritus to help with their plan to take over the New Vegas Strip. And during the quest How Little We Know, you can try to find some dirt on Clandon, and eventually you can come across this snuff tape, which reads, "These tapes contain horrific sounds of murder and violence. You hear Clandon engaging in violent sex with women, and then hear the sounds of visceral and violent murder being carried out." Now in the game, you can find the snuff tapes and examine the dead Gomorrah prostitute in his playroom, and you can go all the way to Captain Maria Pappas in the NCR Military Police HQ. But instead of being able to present all this information saying, "Hey, this guy did it," all you can do is hand over the evidence and say that the person is unknown.
Murder? What kind of murder? Do you have any proof? These are terrifying. Do you have any idea who the man is speaking on this tape? Well, come back here when you can. I'd like to take care of this as soon as possible.
But there is a piece of cut content. Instead of being like, "Well, I don't know, Raggy," you would have been able to turn Clandon in. And after doing this, when you walk through the Gomorrah lobby, it would trigger a scripted event, where 4 NCR MPs enter Gomorrah, head to Clandon's room, and arrest him. In which, after that, he would spend the rest of the game locked up in the NCR Military Police HQ.
Clandon? Okay. I'll send some troops over there to bring him in.
Clandon, under the authority of the New California Republic, I place you under arrest for murder.
What? Are you fucking kidding me? You can't do this. The Emeritus aren't gonna stand by and let you arrest me.
The Emeritus have no say in this matter. This is a legal matter now. You'll have to come with us.
All right, I'll come quietly, but this is fucked.
Lincoln's head. The most random traitor in the game seems to have made their way all the way to Fallout 3 and stole the head from the statue of Lincoln. And the person I'm talking about is a Lady Jane, who can be found in Freeside. She is involved in the quest Debt Collector, where you were asked by the Garrett twins to track down some people and collect their debt, and Lady Jane is one of them. And through a couple dialogue options, she will tell you about her caravan, where you can find it in the Brock Flower Cave. Now, of course, this also fills in with the Wild Wasteland trait, the ROUSs, or the rodents of unusual size, but I'm more interested in Lincoln's head. Once you end up finding her caravan, you will find that Lincoln's head is surprisingly strapped to the back of it, which really makes you question Lady Jane's past and what she's been up to. Now, whether this was an oversight, Easter egg, or a silly little goof and gag, that we don't know. But one thing is for certain, this Lady Jane chick is awfully suspicious. Yucca Mountain. Yucca Mountain is both a real place in real life and in Fallout New Vegas, but in Fallout New Vegas you can't go there, and it's only ever mentioned. It is mentioned by Mr. Radical, who is a dead scavenger that you can come across that happens to be wearing a radiation suit. You can come across his body in the quest Come Fly With Me when you are looking for the Isotope 239 igniting agent. Now, on his body, you can find Mr. Radical's journal, in which he states, Day 1, love the suit, can't scavenge anywhere now, screw the rads, I hereby christen myself Mr. Radical, get it? Heh. Day 4, suit passed first test with flying yellow colors, overnight visit to Yucca Mountain, didn't go too deep because something big moving down tunnel, rad level high, even where I was, and I didn't feel a tickle, go rad suit go. Day 5, vomiting all morning. Didn't splash on suit, or I'd be pissed. Must be something I ate. Day 9. Exciting. Ran across old woman's scrapyard. Bought glowing container for measly 50 caps. Heading for Clark Field to prove suit at high rad levels. If it holds up, I'm going to pop this jar of goop open and pour it all over me. I bet I could swim in this stuff if I had enough of it. Oh yeah. And it seems like Icarus flew too close to the sun because this man is no longer among the living. So it seems like in Fallout New Vegas, Yucca Mountain is a radioactive hellhole, which does have some tie-ins to real life. In real life, Yucca Mountain was proposed to be a nuclear waste repository, and was designated that by the Nuclear Waste Policy Act in 1987. And it was proposed to have a deep geological repository storage facility within Yucca Mountain for spent nuclear fuel and other high-level radioactive waste. And for years since then, Yucca Mountain would get proposed for nuclear waste, and then it would get canceled. Then it would get proposed again, and then it would get canceled. And then it would happen again, and then of course it would get canceled. And the most recent info we have on this is in May 2021, when it was said that Yucca Mountain would not be part of Biden's administration plans for nuclear waste disposal. So it looks like in the Fallout universe, this plan actually did go through, and Yucca Mountain became nothing but radiation. And hence, Mr. Radical went there to test his suit that obviously didn't work. Tale of Orion Marino. In the development of New Vegas, there was a bug that involved the naked corpse of Orion Marino and a vertibird. And instead of me telling you about it, I'm gonna let Josh Sawyer do it.
So now I'll tell the story of Orion Moreno. So this was a bug. This was a bug that we encountered toward the end of Fallout New Vegas' development. And it was this really weird thing where, so we were seeing this bug and we went back and retraced it, and here's what happened. So there's a quest, Arcade's Companion Quest, for Auld Lang Syne. And during the process of doing that quest, inevitably you will have to confront Orion Moreno, who hates the NCR. He absolutely hates NCR. So actually I shouldn't say invariably. I think if you say you're going to side with the Legion, then Cannibal Johnson just leaves. But Orion Moreno, if you say you're going to help the NCR, he gets extremely angry and he leaves, and everyone goes like, oh yeah, he fucking hates the NCR. He's not going to go along with us. So when you walk out of the room that all the other remnants are in, Orion Moreno is dressed in his Enclave armor with his, I think he has like a plasma rifle or something. And he's like, I hate him. Like, I'm not going to do this shit. So you can talk him down, but you can also just fight him and kill him. So if you kill him, then the other remnants are like, well, yeah, I mean, that's not surprising that ended that way. You kind of did what you had to do, but you can take your, you can take his armor. He's like, you can take his remnant's armor. He doesn't need it. So you take it. I mean, most people take the armor because it's really good. So you take that armor, and then the idea is at the Battle of Hoover Dam, they're going to show up and they're going to help you. But the thing is, there was a bug where, due to persistence, what would happen is during the climactic battle at the Battle of Hoover Dam, you'd see the vertibird fly in, and like one after another, all these dudes would hop out. Like Doc Henry jumps out, and Judah Krieger jumps out, and Cannibal Johnson jumps out, and then this decapitated naked corpse of Orion Moreno would just spawn and like flop onto the dam while everybody else like ran across firing on the Legion. It was so fucking funny.
Kale Wacha ne Conservo. This is the line you will hear at the end of the Honest Hearts DLC, right before Joshua Graham puts a cap in General Gobbledygook.
Kale Wacha ne Conserva O. You understand me, don't you? Don't you?
And we really don't know what this means. No, for real, we don't know 100% what this is. There are a bunch of theories, but we don't know what it means. Josh Sawyer has been asked many times, will you ever tell us what Joshua Graham said to Salt Upon Wounds at the end? And he just flat outly replied, no. And when asked, is what Graham said to Salt Upon Wounds something we can find out for ourselves eventually, translate, or is it a nonsense phrase that will forever remain a mystery? In which he replies, it's not nonsense. And when asked any reason why you won't tell us what Joshua Graham said to Salt Upon Wounds, he said, years ago, Ridley Scott changed Blade Runner. He decided to change an ambiguous aspect of a central character to something not ambiguous at all. The movie that Blade Runner fans fell in love with because of that central uncertainty lost something because the author simply changed his mind years after the fact. I think that authors of content should leave the interpretive aspects of their narrative work alone once it goes out into the world for consumption. I think we should discuss it, argue about it, but we shouldn't try to reframe it. It shouldn't really matter whether what's there is intentional or accidental. It's what's in the game and what the player experiences that matter. So in essence, he was saying that content should be discussed, but not be reframed. Now, even though Josh Sawyer is never going to straight up tell us what any of this means, that's not going to stop the community from trying to figure it out anyway. The lead up to Joshua Graham saying that is, you took advantage of us at New Canaan to drive us out, and like the dogs of Caesar you are, you followed us to Zion, and now you stand on holy ground, a temple to God's glory on earth. But the only use for an animal and the temple is sacrifice. And then he says the line, Kale wachene conserva o. You understand me, don't you? Don't you? And it seems like a lot of the community has taken that and eventually come to the conclusion that it translates to something along the lines of, God is watching, but will not protect or will not save you. And I've also seen other theories that say that it's something along the lines of, Caesar is watching, but will do nothing to help. Basically telling him that the person that you had aligned yourself with, the one that you wanted to please the most, doesn't care for you. So normally at this point, I would say maybe one day we'll actually get the real answer, but I don't think he's ever actually going to tell anyone. Fine dining. This one, you're gonna hate yourself because it's so obvious, but you never knew it was there. Like, I have walked past this probably a million times, but I've never known this note was there. Fine dining is a note that you can find literally on the sidewalk out in front of the Ultralux. It's literally right in front of the Ultralux sign. It blends in so good that I've never picked this up. Usually I'm too distracted by the girls dancing in the fountain, but that's just me. But the note reads, these past few years, the very idea of fine dining has seemed beyond our grasp. Indeed, where does one even begin to look for something artfully prepared and beautifully presented by a world-class chef? Well, fellow epicures, I have found the one place left on this godforsaken earth with real food. I present to you the Ultralux. Ignore the rabble on the street, the petty farmers, and everyman types rubbing their pitiful few caps together in an attempt to alleviate themselves to some semblance of class. Ignore the filthy, disease-ridden prostitutes of Gomorrah, whoring themselves out to anyone with coin. Walk briskly to the fabulous Ultralux, the only building in New Vegas worth your attention. You'll know it when you see it. Enter the doors of their restaurant, the Gourmand, and speak with the lovely Mallory. She'll arrange for your care. Dally not, for reservations must be made as early as possible. A sumptuous feast awaits you, dear friends. So even after bombs have dropped, the world's gone to shit, there's always gonna be a food critic. Some Yelper out there reviewing restaurants. And if this guy was still around, he probably would have given the Ultralux 5 stars. Epstein Island connotations in the Coyote Quest. This is one of those things where, like, when you hear it said, you're like, oh, that sounds stupid. But like when you actually look into it, it's like, damn, they might have been spitting facts. So let me lay it out for you. If you don't know what the Coyotes Quest is, it's a quest that you can get in the Aerotech Office Park by Captain Parker, who tells you that things aren't looking too well around here, and mentions that a family had gone missing. And included in that family was a little girl who carried a teddy bear.
Some people have gone missing from the camp lately. I haven't seen any signs of violence or heard about any feuds. They just up and vanished. They never seem to have much in common. That's why I didn't notice it sooner. Young folks, old folks, men, women, all disappearing. I remember a family with a little blonde girl. She never talked much, but she always carried this little stuffed teddy bear. Seem to recall a lot of them did business with those scavengers over on the west side, Dermot and St. James.
Heading over to West Side to investigate this, we can talk to 2 people, Dermot and St. James, in which St. James will act very, very suspicious.
When I talk to a girl, I start the conversation, and I didn't start no conversation with you. I don't know a thing about no missing refugees from that Aerotech camp. Go cry to somebody else. Yeah, well, I must have heard rumors, and, fuck you, you got nothing on me and Dermot.
So catching up on his suspicion, we can look further into this, and we can actually find a teddy bear and the ledger by breaking into their places. And with this, you can either confront them, in which they'll try to attack you and then you can just kill them.
We gotta go through this again? What's it about this time? What are you doing stealing my stuff? That ain't even mine. I mean, it's mine, but it's private. Give it back. Hell, don't give it back. I don't care. just found it when we was working salvage and thought I'd save it to give to some kid if one came by. We gotta go through this again? You got his book? Dermot, this bitch got your book. She got your book.
Uh-oh.
Or you can turn all this information over to Captain Parker, and he'll say that justice will be done. But I prefer the first option, because these two definitely need to meet my friend, a bullet. But if you didn't really read the ledger, you might not exactly know what is going on. In the ledger, he talks about this exact family. Tenefi, teen girl, 400 caps. Teen boy, 150 caps. Child girl, 50 caps. More like it. Learned from the past and got rid of the mom and dad along the way. I tried to get more for the young one. I said, hey, give her time to sprout. But Neffy wouldn't have it. Kept SJ off the girls so long as he got his damn teddy. He's a sick one, but I guess the work calls for it. So these two sick individuals were selling little kids. And that's probably not all they were doing, considering he has to specifically mention to keep St. James off the girls. But how does this relate to Epstein? Well, the quest for the coyotes, the name coyotes, is actually a slang term for criminals who engage in human trafficking and smuggling people across national borders. And what do you think these people in Fallout New Vegas were involved in? Human trafficking of little kids. Who else has been rumored, I don't want to get sued, to have been involved with human trafficking and of little kids? A certain Epstein that totally didn't kill himself. Now, I might be saying, okay, I can kind of see the references, but I'm not too convinced that they're connected. Well, wait till I hit the nail. One of the characters I just constantly mentioned was called St. James. Do you happen to know what Epstein's island was called? Little St. James. Now, it could just be a coincidence that they made a quest about trafficking little kids, and one of the characters happens to be named after Jeffrey Epstein's island. It could all just be a coincidence. Or maybe the creators of Fallout New Vegas knew something, but they couldn't say it, but they could hint to it. Master Harold and Caesar Graham parallel. There are some similarities between the Master and Harold and Caesar and Joshua Graham, as they both were once friends or on the same side until a major event happens and split them apart, one being good and one being evil. Now that's kind of like a very oversimplification of it, but you get the gist. But who is the Master and Harold? Well, the Master was originally Richard Gray. Now, most people probably know him as the mutated psychic flesh amalgamation who acts as the leader of the super mutants and is trying to create a perfect post-human species by spreading the FEV and dipping people in it. But originally, he was Richard Gray, a friend of Harold. Richard Gray was a doctor and a scientist and was known to be very, very intelligent. Meanwhile, Harold was a wastelander and does not turn into a giant lump of flesh. Once Harold and Richard Gray got to the Mariposa military base, Richard Gray fell into a vat of FEV and eventually became the Master. But Harold was just exposed to FEV and did not fall in a vat. So instead of turning into a super mutant, he eventually just turned into a tree that you can't find in Fallout 3. So both of these characters knew each other. And after the event of the military base, the Master wanted to turn all humans into super mutants, remove war, racism, and conflict, and create a unified species. And Harold's goal is a little bit different. It's more tragic. He mainly just wants to stay alive, find a cure, and find a home. And by the time of Fallout 3, he just wants to die, even though his existence has created an oasis, a peaceful green haven in the dead capital wasteland. And depending on your actions, he can have a variety of different outcomes. But essentially, he's not trying to be evil and has done nothing but create life. And those two kind of have a very similar path to Caesar and Joshua Graham. Caesar, or Edward Salos, was originally a part of the Followers of the Apocalypse. But after he was captured by the Blackfoot tribe, he used his knowledge to rebuild them into an army, and then went on to conquer dozens and dozens of tribes. And now he is the leader of Caesar's Legion, a brutal slave army, molded after his interpretation of ancient Rome. All because he read a book. What a nerd. I'm just kidding, I'll wait true to Caesar. But who was Joshua Graham, or the Burned Man? Well, he was a Mormon missionary, and was the co-founder of Caesar's Legion. He ended up joining Bill Calhoun and Edward Salos on their way to the Blackfoot tribe at the Grand Canyon. And with the help of Graham's skills and Caesar's knowledge, they ended up creating Caesar's Legion, with Joshua Graham being Caesar's first legate, or otherwise known as the Malpais Legate. But their split came after the first battle of Hoover Dam, when Joshua Graham fell for the classic destroy Boulder City and the Legion trick that the NCR pulled. And with this disappointment, Caesar had him covered in tar, lit on fire, and thrown over the dam. But unfortunately, as Graham says, I survived because the fire inside me burned brighter than the fire around me, which is such a hard line.
I survived because the fire inside burned brighter than the fire around me.
And he ended up making his way back to New Canaan, where he would reevaluate his life and make it his goal to protect Zion Valley, and the dead horses and the sorrows, and end the threat of the Whitelegs. So even though Graham may have been evil in the past, now he's definitely turned over a new leaf and is trying to better not only himself, but the world around him. And Caesar still is slaving people and having a tumor. So there are some parallels between the Master and Harold and Caesar and Joshua Graham. It's not as close as you might think, but it's still there. So that is going to be the end of today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I think we're done with Fallout New Vegas Iceberg, because I'm pretty sure I've explained almost everything there is to know about this game. But if you guys do find one that you do want explained, let me know. And with all that said, that's all I really got for you guys. Make sure to use code CRAZY at GamerSubs, and leave.